Back in 2005, Lexus became the first luxury manufacturer to offer a hybrid SUV with the RX, which kickstarted the hybridization and electrification for the Lexus lineup over the past 2 decades. Here we are 18 years later, and we have Lexus's first true EV built on a separate platform besides the gas-powered models with the RZ 450e. When you take a look at this vehicle from the outside, it kind of looks like a brand new RX, but also the nameplates are very similar as well. And that's going to be the basis for this review. Is the RZ an electrified RX, or is it something a bit more? We're going to take a deep dive into the RZ, check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, and also see why, if you're looking at buying a premium luxury EV crossover right now in 2023 at around $60,000, then maybe taking a look at the Lexus RZ might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Ira Lexus of Danvers in Danvers, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Lexus inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. In 2023, EVs are on the cusp of going mainstream, where most manufacturers have at least one electrified sedan or crossover that introduces customers to a new experience from their favorite brands. With Audi, Genesis, Jaguar, and Mercedes-Benz eager to get a foothold in this segment, Lexus has unleashed their first EV with the RZ, in hopes of being highly competitive in the electric crossover game. Modeling their EV after the RX could very well pay off in the long run, as it's easily identifiable and relatable to longtime Lexus buyers. And now with the automotive industry moving in the electric direction, Lexus is trying to prove that you don't need to reinvent the wheel to move on from gas-powered vehicles. Starting off with pricing, the RZ we have today is a premium, coming in at just under $60,000. Which would be comparable to the RX 350 Luxury or F-Sport. For the 2023 model year, Lexus is only offering 2 trims, with a limited amount of optional packages and features, keeping their EV crossover as attainable as possible. However, with that said, as we'll find out throughout this review, out of the box, the RZ is very well equipped. Underpinned by Toyota's new electric vehicle platform, the RZ sets a tone for future EV products in upcoming years. And while some may be apprehensive about the future of Lexus, the chassis and architecture this crossover is based on isn't a vast departure from what we currently see from gas-powered vehicles. Taking advantage of the design elements that were incorporated into the Subaru Solterra, the RZ has a ground clearance of 7.9 inches, which is only 0.2 of an inch less than what the RX provides, making Lexus the first mainstream luxury brand to have an EV that would be considered off-road worthy. Crucial for Lexus, and more importantly the RZ, many of the cosmetic characteristics that makes up this EV are similar to the RX, and you see that with the body lines, LED headlights, and the way in which the front fascia has been sculpted. Of course, since there isn't an internal combustion engine under the hood, having a functional grille is unnecessary, but there is air vents on the lower portion of the front bumper to improve aerodynamics. Found throughout is gloss black accents that do add a classier color contrast on this model, and at least at first glance, the RZ has a conventional road presence that should relate well to customers who prefer not to stand out on the road. Making our way over to the side profile, the Premium comes equipped with 18-inch wheels, with 20s being a $1,200 option, which we'd recommend to steer away from if you want to maximize range with the RZ. Being an EV, ride comfort is on par with every competitor in this price range and segment, as the lower center of gravity and weight of the battery does give you a heightened sense of feeling connected to the road. You'll have gloss black power folding side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, the RZ does have some unique styling, with the Sportback roofline and thinner LED taillights that run the length of the rear fascia, which has become a signature look for current Lexus vehicles. Between the sharper body lines and sloping C-pillars, there is a sense that this EV is a dynamic variant for the RX, while at the same time still maintaining a restrained and conservative composure that fits the Lexus product line. Powering the RZ are dual electric motors, producing 308 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque, which propels this crossover to a 0 to 60 time of just under 5 seconds. Being a luxury EV first, the driving characteristics are tailored for comfort and refinement, as accelerations are linear and lack the violent pushback in your seat that a Tesla Model Y would offer. However, for Lexus loyalists, the RZ has a demeanor of other vehicles in the lineup, and will be an easier and more natural transition from a gas-powered crossover to electric. Where the RZ does have limitations is with its range, as 220 miles on a full charge isn't a class leader by any means. However, Lexus acknowledges that their first EV will likely be your second vehicle, rather than being your primary source of transportation. For 2023, all-wheel drive does come standard for both trims, giving you year-round versatility if you encounter snow-covered roadways. Stepping inside, you're greeted by power-adjustable, heated and ventilated leatherette seats for both the driver and passenger on the premium, with the driver's side having 3-position memory functionality. With the plethora of soft-touch materials found on the door panels and dashboard, the interior, without question, reflects the price point, and that's further compounded by the support and cushioning of the front seats that provide the right amount of bolstering to keep you in place on a weekly commute. Unlike its rivals, which go for the unconventional design layout, the RZ's cockpit does mold around you, much like the RX, and as you experience this crossover for the first time, you'll genuinely enjoy its well-thought-out interior that isn't too over-the-top or highly futuristic. In front of you, there will be a digital gauge cluster that's a bit more static and less customizable than what we see from competitors. And similar to recently refreshed Lexus products like the NX and RX, the buttons mounted on the steering wheel are primarily for the head-up display, helping to keep your eyes on the road rather than looking down at screens. Then taking a glance over to the infotainment system, standard is a 14-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility, with onboard navigation being available. Found in a number of Toyota and Lexus models, this user interface is home to most of your climate control settings, including the heated and ventilated seats and heated steering wheel, with physical dials that control the temperature, and buttons for the front and rear defrosters. Unique for this market, this head unit doesn't have a home screen per se, as you'll have icons located on the left side of the screen that gets you to different menus efficiently. When clicking on the Vehicle tab, you can select your drive mode or individualize your experience, access range statistics, and activate or deactivate your long list of driver assist features. Since the infotainment system isn't the most complex, once you get acclimated with the menu layout, you should feel confident using this screen when driving, and you'll have a basic understanding of where everything is. You'll have front and rear cameras to go along with a top view angle to help you park the RZ, and optional and definitely a must-have is the digital rear view mirror, which provides improved visibility when backing up or when you're on the highway. Beneath the screen, you'll find 3 USB-C outlets and the buttons for your cameras and parking assist. Also, a wireless phone charging pad will give you a secure place for your smartphone. For the center console, including the gear selector, this will all be familiar if you've taken the BZ4X or Solterra out for a test drive recently, as this is where the relation to its cousins becomes far more apparent. Since you don't have a glove box, the center storage compartment is large enough to accommodate the user manual and other smaller items. And rounding out the front seating area, above will be a dual-pane sunroof, which lets in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now moving on to the second row, we're going to start off on the passenger side. And this seat has been adjusted all the way back and is also on a recline. And I still have a few inches of legroom to work with here, which I'm really surprised, and this is really fantastic to see for a crossover of this size. Now when you take a look at interior dimensions, you're going to have right around 37.5 inches of legroom for the second row seating area, which is only a half-inch difference compared to the Lexus RX. So despite the fact that the RZ is smaller than the RX, interior-wise, it's pretty much on par with its bigger sibling. And this right here makes the RZ very family-friendly compared to other EVs in this market and price range. Now, of course, the Tesla Model Y is the benchmark. But when you compare the RZ to other legacy manufacturers and what they're offering at $60,000, the RZ to me is certainly going to be more conducive if you do have taller passengers sitting in the second row throughout the week, or you have a smaller family. Now, when it comes to headroom, even with a dual pane sunroof, you have plenty of headroom. I don't think you need to worry about hitting your head on the headliner if you are starting the height of maybe 5'8 or 5'9. Also, just like I saw with the RX, these seats are a bit more reclined and they do sit a little lower to the ground to maximize that headroom. But what about shoulder room? Now, moving on to the center seat, you are going to have some good placements for your feet. The center hump really isn't aggressive at all. And because of that, I think you can fit a third person back here. There's plenty of shoulder room, and as I said before, a lot of headroom, and more importantly for the center seat, there's a lot of legroom as well. This to me is a standout because if I compare this to the Cadillac Lyriq I recently featured, this would be on par, and I think it's a little bit better when it comes to width, at least for the center seat, which to me really goes a long way for what Lexus is offering here with their first true EV in 2023. Then moving on to the driver's side, this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have an abundant amount of legroom here. I think that if you have people on the height of 6 feet tall sitting in front of you, you're going to be nice and comfortable back here and have no care in the world because these seats do provide a good amount of bolstering and support. They're also very comfortable as well. Also back here, you do have 2 rear air vents to go along with 2 USB-C inputs and a 2-pronged outlet. And rounding out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now coming around to the back, you're going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 23.7 cubic feet of room, which is a bit smaller compared to the Lexus RX, but that's a given since we do have a lower roofline and sport back rear fascia. Also, of course, electric motors and battery will take away from overall practicality. But I was able to fit all my camera gear today, no problem. So that's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. And this cargo area is rather wide and it's a bit deceptive on camera. So if you are going on a shorter road trip with the family, I think you'll probably fit maybe 5-6 bags of luggage back here. But also what Lexus is trying to achieve with this crossover is to have enough space where you can fit golf clubs and other items that you're going to be using on a daily basis. So if you are going grocery shopping or running errands, you're not going to have any issues at all when it comes to the overall practicality. Then with the second row seats full, you're looking at right around 55.5 cubic feet, once again falling in line with most EVs in this price range and market. Adding to the interior space, beneath the floor mat, you are going to have another storage compartment, most likely for your charging cables, but it is deep enough where you can fit another bag or 2. Also back here, you are going to have a rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that no one will be able to peek in and steal what you have. And then once you're done, just press the button and the liftgate will close automatically. At first glance, you probably think that the Lexus RZ is just a rebadged Toyota BZ4X and Subaru Solterra. But the longer I spend time with this EV, the more I think that Lexus is solely benefiting from this platform more so than Subaru and Toyota. Sure, all 3 manufacturers get their first true EV in their respective segments, but to me, Lexus is receiving something far more. They're getting a crossover that resembles the RX, whereas the Solterra and BZ4X are kind of brand new for those lineups. Whereas this really does feel like an electrified RX, whether it is from the outside or even the interior. The interior layout is pretty much the exact same that we saw on the RX. Also, the interior spacing and just the overall practicality is also the same as well. But also, for Lexus specifically, they're a luxury brand, and EVs tend to benefit luxury brands in many ways. As you get a lower center of gravity, the suspension seems to be softer as well, but also these crossovers tend to be a bit sportier than their gas-powered counterparts and variants. Now, the RZ has no relation to the RX. It's built on a separate platform, but I do notice a lot of those characteristics makes its way into this vehicle, which I think is going to benefit this crossover moving forward when production starts ramping up, because for 2023, you're only getting around 5,000 in the US. So obviously, Lexus is trying to really figure out where this crossover is going to place in this market, but also I have a feeling, and this is just a hunch, that production will move its way to America at some point down the road, just so that this crossover really takes advantage of all the tax credits that are available for this model, at least if it was made in the US. Right off the bat, there's a few things I really like about the Lexus RZ. For one, it feels very conventional. This is not super futuristic and foreign to you if you currently own a brand new RX or other Lexus models right now in the 2023 lineup. If you were to make the switch from a full gas-powered model to an electric vehicle like the RZ, it's going to be a very natural progression, especially the way in which this vehicle performs, since you don't have one pedal drive. Sure, you do have regen braking, which is going to help out with the range a bit, but what I do like, though, is that the driving dynamics are very similar to what you're going to experience with other Lexus products. Also, when it comes to seating comfort and positioning, you sit very high up in this crossover. Unlike other EVs in this market, you have a ground clearance close to 8 inches, which is going to outrival and outclass a lot of vehicles in this market and price range, at least for EVs. So if you are looking for something that really suits you, if you live in colder regions of the US, especially up here in the Boston area, you're gonna have the confidence to take on winter road conditions. And I think that's where the Lexus RZ is going to really see a lot of its sales, especially up here in New England and maybe across the northern regions of the Midwest and Northwest. What I also like too is that you get all-wheel drive standard, and a lot of EVs don't offer that. So you're getting a few incentives here that other EVs are not going to give you. Now, since we are on some back roads here, let's put it in sport mode and see what that does to the steering. What I do notice, though, is that regen braking is far more aggressive in this setting. And it certainly has a nice lower center of gravity. Now, you are going to feel some body roll here, but it does feel planted. I have to say, it feels more connected to the road than the RX, which would be expected since it does have that lower center of gravity and extra weight thanks to the battery and electric motors. But it does feel relatively sporty. Now, of course, this isn't the fastest or most agile EV in this segment. However, even with 308 horsepower and right around 320 pound-feet of torque, this crossover is no slouch. It can go from 0 to 60 under 5 seconds, which is pretty fantastic considering what you see on paper. Further enticing and captivating you when you are driving on these back roads is a nice leather-wrapped steering wheel, which does feel very premium and high quality. Also, you have aggressive 9 and 3 positions and 10 and 2 positions, so that way when you are on those back roads, you can have a lot of fun. More importantly, when it comes to the power distribution, is that it feels very willing to meet your demands, but also it's compliant in many ways, very much like a typical Lexus. This totally fits into what Lexus is all about, what their DNA and characteristics are going to give you, whether it is a gas-powered plug-in hybrid, or this EV. And this, to me, just complements the lineup overall. However, I would like to see Toyota develop a stronger battery, giving you more range for this vehicle, because 220 miles does fall on the shorter end in this segment, and in my opinion is really the only weak spot for the RZ, because you can't complain about the interior technology. We have a full digital gauge cluster and a nice infotainment system, which is the exact same setup that we see in a Lexus RX. Also, you can't complain about the interior comfort at all because the ride quality is exceptional. I think it definitely exceeds the price point. When you are going over the bumps and imperfections, you barely feel them. Also, the suspension is more than forgiving, very soft and plush. Also, of course, the active dampers certainly help out with the cushioning, but also even the handling capabilities of this vehicle. Now getting onto the highway, plenty of power in sport mode. It's quick. It's very quick. I also like the sound that's being pumped into the cabin here. You can safely get on the highway. It's not lacking in terms of power. That gives you a lot of confidence for sure. Now at highway speeds, at around 65 miles an hour, road noise really isn't that bad, especially since we have the 18-inch wheels on this model. It feels pretty composed on the roadways. And really, if I was to not look at the exterior of this crossover, not look at the badging at all, and just hopped in, I would say this is a Lexus RX with more performance. And I think that's what's really important for the RZ, because it's modeling after Lexus's best-selling vehicle, and I think that's a winning formula for the RZ. Once Lexus ramps up production, once we start getting other trims, because it only has 2 trims right now for 2023, and I don't think that's going to hold very long for the Lexus brand. I think we're going to see more trims, we're going to see better range, we're going to see more options as well down the line. This is really, in my opinion, a debut edition, if anything else. Plenty of passing power. Of course, with it being an EV, has nice low and mid-range torque. And it just feels really high quality and refined. Even on a very windy day like today, not a lot that is entering the cabin, so Lexus has definitely prioritized interior quality, but also sound deadening as well, which is very important for an EV because you don't have the gas-powered motor drowning out the noise of the outside world. All in all, compared to the bZ4X and Subaru Solterra, the RZ makes more sense. It just fits in the lineup for Lexus far better than Subaru and Toyota. I also feel, and maybe this is not accurate, I feel like that this platform and this crossover was designed specifically for Lexus more so than Toyota and Subaru. It feels like there's more involvement. It feels like there's been more effort poured into this vehicle compared to its cousins. And lastly, and more importantly, the RZ looks, drives, and feels like a conventional crossover, which is definitely going to draw in a lot of buyers once we see Lexus ramp up the production and give this vehicle further development, whether it is the range or just even adding on newer trims to this vehicle in the future. So to quickly wrap up this review, there's a lot to genuinely like about the 2023 Lexus RZ. From the outside, it's stylish, it's upscale, it's classy, and fits in with the Lexus family of vehicles. So it's not this weird vehicle that has slot into the lineup like we see from the Solterra and bZ4X. The Solterra and the bZ4X, to me, just seem like a completely different crossover and vehicle for maybe a different time period in those two particular lineups. Whereas the Lexus RZ, it really does look like an RX, and that translates to the interior as well, where you have a full digital gauge cluster, the same infotainment system, same dashboard layout. And if you are hopping in from a gas-powered Lexus, you're going to feel right at home behind the wheel. And that's really important for a lot of people right now because EVs are very futuristic and a couple steps ahead of their gas-powered counterparts. What I also like too is that the interior wraps around you. It's very driver-centric, driver-focused, and the materials that Lexus use is certainly high quality and fits the price point of this EV. Then when it comes to the on-road performance and on-road demeanor, this vehicle gives you enough power to enter highways safely and to pass lower drivers with ease. What I also like too is that the way the handling, the cornering ability, and even just the way it drives when it goes over the bumps and imperfections feels very similar to what you would expect from a gas-powered Lexus. And I think that's what's really important for Lexus right now. They don't want to really deviate too far away from what they currently have with the RX and other crossovers in this lineup. And I really feel that the RZ, after spending about 3 hours with it, it does feel like an electrified RX. And it just seems to me that this vehicle has a purpose. It has a place. It actually has an identity, unlike the Solterra and BZ4X, which is why my main takeaway right now is that for this platform, for this vehicle specifically, the RZ makes more sense for Lexus than it does for Toyota and Subaru. And from a journalistic standpoint, I can definitely appreciate this vehicle now, having experienced it. And then also from a consumer standpoint, I think it's exactly what you're looking for if you want a luxury EV crossover right now in 2023. The only drawback is that range is a bit lower. If you can live with that, I think you're going to love what the RZ is providing. And hopefully, for any of the Lexus executives out there that are watching this video, definitely give us a better battery. Give us something close to 300 miles of range. Because if you do, I think the RZ becomes one of the best options right now in this segment. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.